Have your fantasy teams been struggling this year? Or perhaps you've been doing pretty well but want to put yourself over the top? Then make sure to visit our friends over at Finish First Fantasy Advisors. They are the premier one-on-one consulting firm that specializes in providing you with expert support to help guide you to the championship. You will be matched with one of their expert advisors to provide you with the season-long insight for your redraft, dynasty, or DFS formats. Their advisors will contact you weekly to answer all of your questions and provide you the needed information to get to the next level. Set up a free 15-minute consultation by emailing them at info@finishfirstfantasy.com or by visiting them at www.finishfirstfantasy.com. That's www.finishfirstfantasy.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Scullrud, and on tonight, although we tried recording an episode 2 days ago, and we'll call it operator error. we didn't have an episode, our Sleepers and Bus episode this week, and sorry for that, guys. But on with me tonight.
We did it, but it didn't get to you.
Yeah, we did it. It was a great show, and we had a lot of great information. You guys just didn't hear it. So, on the show with me tonight is CJ Krause. He's one of our rankers. Last year had one of our featured articles. What was it? Pop, Lock, and Drop It.
Yeah.
For quarterbacks, and so. This last week, in Week 7, he was actually the #1 ranker on Fantasy Pros in terms of his accuracy score. So, welcome to the show, CJ.
Yeah, happy to be on for the first time recorded and second time total.
Yeah, you're probably not going to let me forget that one, but that's okay.
At least this show, I won't let it go. Once it gets posted, I'll know it's real.
What you don't realize is it's happened to me before a couple of times, and the major times that it's happened to me before was I was interviewing. It was interviews getting ready for the NFL draft, and so I interviewed the radio play-by-play guy for Nebraska football, and forgot to hit record. and that was and then when I was interviewing the radio play-by-play guy for Tennessee 3 years ago about Alvin Kamara, forgot to hit record. So I told him there were some technical difficulties and rescheduled that interview for about a week later and was able to finally.
You're just trying to keep your secrets to yourself. That's all it is.
So I'm at least willing to state that I'm not above human error. So I'm full disclosure.
Aren't we all though?
Yeah. Yeah, just look at some of our picks this week. So we were great on some and not so great on others.
Yeah. 70% of the time is the goal, right?
All right. Well, okay. One more thing, just kind of as a side note. One of the best things I ever heard about fantasy football experts was from Brad Evans, who said there's the only difference between a fantasy football expert and a guy who just knows a lot about fantasy football and plays a lot of leagues is one guy is willing to have his opinions out there and criticized by the entire world. The other one isn't. So, really, that's all it is just we're willing to say what we think, put it out there for other people to see on mass markets, and, willing to get absolutely berated for costing other people their leagues. So,
at the end of the day, they put the person in the lineup, but I will do my best to guide to my best knowledge. And if someone puts somebody in their lineup, I probably put them in mine too. So I'm feeling the same pain.
Correct.
So I commit to everything I put out there. So.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with the news and notes for the day.
Today's headlines.
All right, and in today's headlines, there's not actually a whole lot going on. There was a couple injuries. The first one was actually from the same game. We've got T.Y. Hilton, who had to leave the game with a groin injury, and in the same game, Kenny Golladay left early with a hip injury. So, really, T.Y. Hilton hasn't done much this year in terms of the whole cohesion with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has more targeted the tight ends, which, by the way, Jack Doyle showing up to score a touchdown today I thought he was out.
I mean, he exists. Like he runs a couple routes a game. I dropped him in a dynasty league recently, but I still wouldn't have been near my starting line with Burton actually getting most of the targets.
Yeah.
I mean, and T.Y. Hilton's been dead to me in fantasy for a while. I think I had him at like 58 or something like that. Like I just don't rank T.Y. Hilton anymore.
And then I think the injury to Kenny Galladay kind of hurt everyone. I mean, I think I had him as a top 10 wide receiver this week.
Yeah, I had him at wide receiver 8, and it was a good matchup. Well, not a good matchup, but like he's Kenny Galladay, and he's like an anomaly. He's like the only receiver that gets the least amount of separation with how high of a catch rate. He's like, I forget the exact stat, but he's literally the 1% of contested catch rate success. That's like over 60%.
Yeah. We'll have to look that up. I think that's one of the stats on Next Gen Stats. We can use that for another episode. Gus Edwards was being evaluated for a knee injury. I don't know if he was able to come back in that game.
He wasn't doing much anyways.
No, and for everyone who is I know that there was another major podcast. We'll put it that way, so that we're not naming names. It was all about when Mark Ingram was announced as out. Pick up Gus Edwards. He's going to get the volume. They couldn't run. I mean, they ran well overall, but no one. Did anyone run in for a touchdown today?
I don't believe so. Dobbins got the yardages, but I don't think they're you run into a brick wall when you're facing against Pittsburgh. That's the biggest thing about that. Like ever since I watched Week 1 and they just like shut down Barkley, I'm like, okay, well, I'm ranking everyone like down here at this point. Like.
Tevin Coleman was active today and then went out with a knee injury. So we'll have to see where that goes.
Welcome back, bud.
Sucks. The Seattle defense actually looked a little nasty today. They were really hitting hard. To go along with it, Jimmy Garoppolo limped off after the third sack. The Seahawks got 3 sacks in a game. Can you believe it?
They've looked better. I mean, I understand you probably feel it more than anybody else watching the games, but they have looked better, and they've been very good versus the run.
Yes.
The pass is what they've been like lacking, but
a lot of it in the pass game has been where they've gotten up by so much, they're playing prevent defense and give up a ton of yards. Mm-hmm. Because really, coming into today, I think they had only given up 9, maybe 10 passing touchdowns, which was still in the top 10 in the league. They just give up yards like it's no one's business. So,
well, they're letting me yards at that point, but
yeah,
it's great for fantasy.
Oh yeah, garbage time. That's Blake Bortles built a fantasy career off of garbage time. So yeah, we'll see how long Jimmy Garoppolo's out. Nick Mullins came in and scored 17 points in fantasy and was, I think, a top 12 scorer in terms of quarterbacks with that performance. In was it from halfway through the third quarter on? So,
yeah.
The other major injury was George Kittle went out with an ankle injury. X-rays show it's not a fracture. They're going to continue testing him on Monday. I mean, for me, this looks like he may be, I mean, I could see him missing at least a week. So it's possible that we could be looking at a Ross Dwelley streaming option next week.
I mean, Ross Dwelley's played well every time he's had to have his number calling. That's basically the offense utilizes the tight end so well. And Nick Mullins has been known to really, if I'm assuming that Garoppolo is going out, he might not play either. But Jimmy G and Mullins are known to use their tight ends more often. So he's definitely on the streaming radar. Who do they play next week? Look that really quick.
Sure.
One sec.
Next week they play Green Bay.
Okay, Green Bay.
Yeah. In Green Bay. No, it's at home. Green Bay at home on Thursday.
Oh, it's a Thursday night, so it's a short week. So
yep.
Then I would be planning to be without Kittle on the short week. With that, maybe planning to be without Garoppolo. So I might be looking at Nick Mullins, the Ross Dwelley connection coming in here soon. So.
All right. And the only other major news in the NFL today it's not necessarily fantasy related, but it kind of is. The Jets actually traded inside linebacker Avery Williamson to Pittsburgh. So the rich get richer, and the Steelers' defense is going to be that much better. So this is just one more sign that you don't use people against Pittsburgh if you don't have to.
If today was an indication on that, shutting the way they shut down, even though they scored a lot of points like on the board, but like fantasy wise, it's not a good call.
In terms of fantasy, yeah. In terms of fantasy production, I mean, because they're getting the Ravens got a lot of yards. I want to say they ran for over 100 yards in the first half.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I want to say that Lamar Jackson, did he turn it over 4 times today? Was it two interceptions and 2 fumbles?
I believe it was 3, but yeah.
3 interceptions and a fumble?
I know there was a pick 6 involved in there too, so.
Okay, yeah. So yeah.
Definitely
sorry, it was Carson Wentz that had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So
yeah.
So
these guys, I mean, Lamar going back to his way he was playing as a rookie with having the ball control that he showed his sophomore year. So
yeah,
hopefully that's a 1-week thing, or it's going to be kind of a trend again.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we go ahead now? We're about to go into our Kings and Stings section. And again, what we do for Kings and Stings is we start off with our 3 Kings of the week at each position. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And then we go through our Stings. So, and again, for the Stings section, these are not guys that are just, guys that scored 0 points, because, that could be anyone that's rostered in less than 60% of leagues. These are guys that you almost definitely started that could have cost you your week because of how poor their play was. So how poor their output was. So before we get into Kings and Stings, we do want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Squatch Soaps, one of the main sponsors and affiliates that we have with SkullKing Football. I personally, I don't know if you've ever actually, I don't know, CJ, have you ever actually seen any of their commercials or like their ads on like Facebook and stuff?
I've not, but I'm sure it's coming soon and we're going to be talking about
it. Now that I've mentioned it, and you're going to hear it, you're going to be thinking about Dr. Squatch Soap, and you're going to see an ad for him on Facebook.
If I log in right now, it's going to show up, I promise.
Exactly. So yeah, no, I love Dr. Squatch Soaps. I love the all natural, made in the USA, they're practically homemade. They smell great, they feel great. There's no detergents or anything in them. My favorite one is the Pine Tar Bar, which is actually an all black soap bar. But the one thing that we have with them is that if you go to Dr. Squatch and order $20 worth of product, you get 20% off if you use the promo code SKS20. So again, go to Dr. Squatch Soap, check out their soaps. They've got toothpaste, they've got shaving cream, shaving bars, and accessories. Go to Dr. Squatch, order $20 worth of product, and you get 20% off of any order over $20 with the promo code SKS20. So make sure to go check them out. Really, I mean, we've already had a few people use our promo code there. I'm sure that they're going to love what they've got. So, all right, let's go ahead and hop into our Kings and Stings. We'll start it off with the quarterbacks. And I'll just go ahead and list these off real quick, and we'll kind of give our thoughts on them. So, starting it off, Patrick Mahomes, our number 1 King of the week, 416 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Finishes off with 36.64 points. Number 2 is Russell Wilson. And I actually moved Patrick Mahomes from 1st to 4th in my rankings this week, like the beginning of the day, and had Russell Wilson number 1. I would have had 1 and 2 right. But Russell Wilson, 28.74 points, 261 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He also had 23 yards rushing. And number 3, a little bit of a surprise here, Matthew Stafford finishes with 23.44 points, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, and a lost fumble. So, any thoughts on any of those games today?
I mean, the biggest thing and takeaway is that I don't think you or me are surprised the way Russ played with everything. We were kind of assuming that would be more of a passing game with the way the running back situation was with Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde, Travis Homer, and DJ Dallas. only half of them being active with that one. So he's been just doing amazing things in there. San Francisco, even though they've considered a great defense, the injuries have kind of like hurt their pass rush. One of the biggest takeaways for me is the Mahomes and Stafford. I mean, I had them both moderately high. I was a little bit lower on Mahomes in the consensus just because I didn't see them doing this, where they just like punched them in the mouth and kept hitting them. I was like, stop!
Yeah.
They're already dead. Like, why do you keep doing this? So I expected a little less points because they're usually good about this year at least. They've been kind of just letting once they get the lead, they hold it. That's what we're looking for. But no, I mean, you can always have a game like this with Mahomes and Stafford. The biggest surprise of that one is Kenny Golladay, I believe, had 0 points.
Correct.
And Stafford did this.
Yep.
So it just shows what the offense can do, even though they didn't get the win here. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I think he ends up not being in the top 3, but Marvin Jones had 2 of those touchdowns today. And I actually told someone today to start Marvin Jones because they're like, do I do Marvin Jones or do I do this guy? And like, I'd go with Marvin Jones. It's not the best matchup, but I just think he's the better option for today. And sure enough,
he's just always that guy that you if you're like, I don't know what I need, but I need some points, some chasing. Like someone had Julio earlier in the week. Oh, I'm chasing points. Like throw Marvin Jones is not having a great year this year, but he's always good for these like 2 to 3 touchdown games at least once or twice a year.
Yeah,
and week, you know, today was.
All right, so let's move on to the running back kings. Dalvin Cook.
Yeah,
I really don't like him.
I had him at 1. He was my 1.
I had him at 4 because I just wasn't sure. I moved him down to 4 just because he is coming off a groin injury. It's possible that could, he could tweak something in the cold weather. But no, he
I mean, to kind of interject, the biggest thing I saw with this matchup is the fact that the weather was going to win. And we talked a lot about the weather in the unrecorded session, especially with this game, that usually the pass catchers take about a 15% drop along with the quarterback in a game with that high of wins. And that also usually transfers more to about 10 to 15% to the running back position in those games.
Yep.
So that's kind of what made me kind of like leave him at 1, even though it was a great matchup for it. And just like, let me solidify that whenever that was. So that's where my head was at by having him there. And it worked out real well.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I had him at 4. Dalvin Cook.
Scared.
Huh?
Dalvin Cook's always hurt, so just play him and see what happens.
47.6 points in half-point PPR, 30 rushing attempts for 163 yards, 3 touchdowns, and let's not forget 2 receptions for 63 yards, one of them being a 50-yard touchdown. So I faced him in a couple leagues. I did not play him in any of my DFS lineups, and one of them I finished 4th. And 3 of the 3 guys ahead of me all had Dalvin Cook in their lineups, and I didn't. So that hurt. Number 2, Giovanni Bernard. I think that I understand that Joe Mixon is like their guy. I think that Giovanni Bernard is the more productive when he's in there than Joe Mixon.
I mean, Gio's always done this when Mixon is out. Like, I don't think he's had a bad game under like 15 fantasy points when Mixon is out. I'm just feeling like he doesn't can't handle the workload long term.
Probably not.
And that's what I believe. I think it's more like a Mike Davis situation where it's like fresh legs, you're on fire. And that being said, I still had him as a high, like a top 7 running back this week because I just love the matchup. With that, so kind of it's working out for me with that one. And I started him over. I think I sat Kareem Hunt and played him instead this week in the league.
Yeah, I had Kareem Hunt as like my running back 3 or 4.
I dropped him down to 12, I believe.
Yeah, as far as Giovanni Bernard finished with 21.3 points, 62 rush yards and a touchdown. 3 catches, 16 yards, and another touchdown. So, and then Alvin Kamara, I mean, it's no surprise ever, no matter who he's going up against, just because of the volume to see him up here. 12 rushes for 67 yards, 9 catches for 96 yards. Didn't finish with a touchdown, but still finished with over 20 points.
I mean, that should have been an automatic start with everything going on with Michael Thomas sitting, no Emmanuel Sanders. They're throwing to Deontay Harris. and Traquan Smith. Like Callaway didn't play. That should have been like the smash play of everybody. I think I had him at 2, and he just finished at 3. So that was kind of the auto.
And and we're not going to go over their stats, but the next 4 guys in terms of scoring half-point PPR: DJ Dallas with 20.3, Zach Moss 20.1, Jordan Wilkins with 19.8, and Naheem Hines with 19.7.
Yeah,
that shows you what happens in fantasy football some weeks.
The Jonathan Taylor owners are not pleased.
No.
Today.
No, not at all. So, all right, on to the wide receiver kings. Number 1, Mr. DK Metcalf, 34.1 points, 15 targets, 12 receptions, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Those were the 15 targets, and I want to say the targets, the receptions, and the yards were all new career highs for DK Metcalf in a single game. Devontae Adams, of course, 7 catches, 53 yards, and 3 touchdowns for 26.8 points today. And Robert Woods, kind of coming out of the woods.
Woods.
24.9 points. Had 2 rushes. One of them was for a touchdown, 9 total yards, and then 7 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown there. He was a big surprise there. So.
Yeah, definitely Robert Woods is a bigger surprise. The game script was definitely not what I expected, with Tua making his first start facing down the pass rush they had on the other side.
Yeah.
But again, the defense made him keep playing and they keep passing. I believe that Cooper Kupp had 22 targets in that game, and finished 110 yards. And then Robert Woods with his 8 targets. They just kept funneling to their best players, which they haven't done in a while, which is good to see.
Yeah. So I'm trying to look. Trying to figure where Cooper Kupp actually finished. There he is. Yeah, 21 targets, 11 catches for 110 yards.
Yeah, I was like, he had like a ridiculous amount of targets. Like every pass was trying to get to Kupp, and they got half of them.
Yep. So, all right, and then finally our tight ends. Obviously, I mean, again, no stranger to the top. Travis Kelce, 20.9 points, 12 targets, 8 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. Number 2, Jared Cook, 5 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown for 13.6 points. And Eric Ebron, 12.8 points, 4 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown.
I mean, the first 2 shouldn't really surprise you too much. I mean, Jared Cook being number 2 probably a little bit, but it goes hand in hand with Alvin Kamara. Whenever the pass catchers on the field, the receptions go there. I mean, I think Drew Brees is looking at him in every end zone play. I mean, there's that one that he just tripped and fell, and then he caught the next one for a touchdown right before halftime. With that one, Kelce, when Mahomes throws that many touchdowns, one's barring to get to Kelce's
One's going to go to Kelce.
It's going to happen. I know we differed on Ebron this week. I was higher than most on him. I think I had him at tight end 13. There's a streamer for me. I don't know where you ended up putting him, but
let me see if I can actually pull up my rankings.
They kind of disappear afterwards. I don't know how they find.
Well,
them,
I do them actually I actually go to the website to actually SkullKingSports.com, and because that's the only place that they stay up until I change them. So I had Eric. Oh gosh.
In hindsight,
I had Eric Ebron at tight end 24.
What did I have him at? If you
had him at 13. You did not
13?
actually have him the highest.
Oh, really?
Anthony Hagee had him at tight end 12.
Good job, man.
So
edged me out by 1. I should have believed him more.
And man, and Jimmy Graham, I had him as both had him as a sleeper play. Did he do anything today?
Not much at all.
Oh, yeah, one of those days. So
the biggest thing I think with Ebron, he's consistently getting about 5 to 6 targets, averaging 5.3 going into this game. He got 5 this game. I think he's just a safe play and then matchup dependent. Baltimore is good against the tight end, but they're not great.
Yeah,
I think it's something you can get a cover. As long as his hands don't turn to stone, I think Ebron can have good games because he's due for about 1 to 2 drops a game though.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Now we move on to our sting section. Again, these are guys that you almost definitely started, and just kind of the rough games that they had. So our number 1 QB, our 2 QB stings, Josh Allen, 99% rostered on Yahoo, 13.46 points, 154 yards, and an interception, no touchdowns passing. Did have a rush TD and 32 and 23 yards rushing. So usually, I mean, Josh Allen has really fallen off over the last couple weeks. He's kind of doing the Russell Wilson thing from the last few years, where Russell Wilson would start off hot for like 5 weeks and then really fall off the second half of the season. Josh Allen I think they're starting to figure out Josh Allen a little bit. Although it didn't help that the weather was not great in Buffalo today for that game. So it was cold weather and a bunch of wind in that one as well. So
yeah, I mean, but you would think he would be able to get at least like some more like rushes in there. But the running backs played so well today against the New England defense that like they didn't need to put Josh Allen in that situation.
correct.
I think in a game where it's bad weather, you can kind of like try to bank on a Josh Allen game with his legs. But this is the first time we've seen the running backs be efficient. I think it's a good defense.
Yeah.
I believe both of them had 14 carries, over 80 yards. Moss ended up getting the touchdowns, but they were both efficient when they've been averaging about, like, in terms of fantasy points, just above 5 for Singletary, just below 5 for Moss. So this is a welcome thing. I'm sure they don't want to run Allen as much. It's more annoying for fantasy than anything else when that happens. But I'm sure that as a team, Buffalo is pretty happy about that. So it's something to monitor in the upcoming weeks, because Allen we usually bank on the floor as well, because his arm can be sporadic, to say the least.
The other QB sting, 87% rostered on Yahoo. Carson Wentz, 10.62 points. This was a game primed for him to actually finally play pretty well.
Yeah, but he can't hold on to the football. He can't hold on to the football.
He couldn't hold on to the football. He lost 2 fumbles, threw 2 interceptions, but he did throw for 2 touchdowns, 123 yards.
Diggs on the Dallas Cowboys. So I think it's Stephon Diggs' brother.
Yep.
Out there.
Threw both the interceptions to him tonight. So 10.62 points for Carson Wentz. So he was struggling. He was one of those a decent value play so that I could stack the rest of my DFS rosters other places. Yeah. And it just didn't quite work out as well as I wanted. So
you had him at 4 in your rankings?
4 or 5.
Yeah, something like that. I had him at 5. I expected more out of him too. I mean, yeah, bad week.
I had him at 4. You had him at 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry was the best of us. Had him at 7.
So I mean, none of us did too well. I mean, Wentz has been playing great this season in terms of fantasy, not really on the field.
Yeah.
So if you like you just kind of one of those things that like Eagles fans like watch the game, they're like, how is he doing so well in fantasy? We all felt that tonight watching in prime time. That's pretty much the whole NFC East. Just like close your eyes and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's ugly. Speaking of the NFC East, let's move on to the running backs. And Zeke, our big running back sting, or one of our big running back stings, 100% rostered, 7.8 points, 63 rush yards, and a catch for 10 yards. They really don't know how to use Ezekiel. And again, part of it is the fact that they don't have a quarterback, so that they can so the defenses tend to focus on the run. That being said, at one point Zeke was averaging 6 yards a carry. I want to say through the first half he was averaging 6 yards a carry. And they never really got behind by enough that they had to, quote-unquote, abandon the run. Honestly, I put a lot of this at the feet of Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I mean, I understand that they're missing some pieces and they're on their third string quarterback. I get it. But is there any way? I mean, they've done a terrible job of, in my opinion, of getting Zeke involved in the offense from the beginning of this season.
I mean, I could see both sides of this one. The biggest thing I see is that offensive line struggle. Once they get healthy, we'll probably see more of Zeke going through. I mean, the Philadelphia pass rush, if they wanted to use it, they decided not to most of this game. They wanted to let Benjamin, they kind of just like with that could have gotten and plugged up some holes in there. Also, with these backup quarterbacks, they're seeing more stacked boxes of that. So the biggest thing is getting Zeke in space. And tonight they wanted to use Pollard in that aspect. From what I was seeing in the game, was that Pollard was the one catching the screens. He was the one. And that's been Zeke normally. I don't know how many targets he got. I can look it up real fast. But he's been averaging 6 a game. I don't believe he got 6 targets this game.
Zeke today had 2 targets.
Yeah, so he's at 1/3 of his normal target share, on top of poor matchup. I think they didn't fall too far behind, but they were still down by 14 going in the last couple minutes. Yeah. So,
all right. Next,
they just look bad as an offense.
Yeah, they are. The next one, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 100% rostered, 4.6 points, 21 yards, 3 catches for 10 yards. This is another one of those, they were just beating up the Jets in the pass game. They didn't really need to utilize the run game. I mean, I think that this was just, you had expected the game script to go towards the run. And I think this is one of those days where I think Patrick Mahomes was so on, let him keep going.
I mean, that's really what I think happened. Like, I had him all the way up at running back 4 this week just because I expected them to get a lead and then just like hold it. That's what they've been doing all season. Like, they haven't been doing the whole high fly in, score 40, 30 points on everybody like they've done before. So based on what I saw this season with that, and today they did. So anytime this can happen, CEH and an extension, Le'Veon Bell, neither one did anything of fantasy relevance today.
No.
I believe he had Le'Veon Bell had 6 carries for 7 yards or some like ridiculously low number. It was just one of those games where they let Mahomes do his thing, and they just kept passing downfield, and it worked. So,
yep. Our last running back sting, Jonathan Taylor, 99% rostered, 4.1 points, 22 yards, carrying 2 catches for 9 yards. This was basically the Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines show in Indianapolis. I mean, they were those two were number 6 and 7, I believe, in terms of running backs scoring this week. So, yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing to take away from this is the workload, how it was distributed. Jordan Wilkins had 20 carries compared to John Taylor's 11. That's something big thing to keep looking at this one. And they've been using Jordan Wilkins throughout the season. So I'm not sure if we're not seeing something in practice. I believe coming out of the bye, they wanted to, I guess, use Wilkins as the RB1. And it could be just a hot hand situation. This is something to monitor going forward to the Jonathan Taylor owner with that, because the pass work's going to go to Hines more often than not. That's his role. Yeah. He also does a wicked back tuck into like a corkscrew when he catches touchdowns, apparently. So that's something cool to see. So give that guy the ball more so I can see that more. But as a Taylor owner, it's something to be very worried. I mean, what do you think? Is this time to start shopping Taylor and try to see what you can get for him? Because I know everyone that has him drafted high and they expected him to be the guy going forward with Mac gone. What would you do? Or what are you planning to do with your team that have Jonathan Taylor?
I don't have Jonathan Taylor on any of my teams. So that helps.
Okay.
And
it's good right now.
Yeah, and here's something I say on I admit this on all the podcasts where something like this comes up and all the live streams I do. I'm horrible with fantasy trades because every single fantasy trade I do that should work out completely in my favor blows up in my face. And not the guy I traded for gets injured. It's usually the guy I traded for then just completely disappears from an offense when he's been like the number one guy, and I give up a whole bunch for him, and then they just stop using him and stop utilizing him, and something like that. Or the guy that I pitched, hey, this guy has a whole lot of potential, and I trade him away, and I was right, he has a whole lot of potential, and he takes off, and the guy that I had does worse. So
it's just
moving on to Jonathan Taylor. I would be concerned. I would see if you could if there's possibly something you could get for him. I would be willing at this point to maybe move on and at least put him on your league's trade block to see if you can see what kind of offers you could get for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to see someone I might try to get that you might be able to get, with like a Chase Edmonds.
Yeah, possibly.
Because with Drake injured, I think he's going to be the guy. And this game, again, it could just be a hot hand game, but they're showing 20 carries to Jordan Wilkins to 11 to Taylor coming out of a bye. Usually that's when they make adjustments. Usually you would think the rookie would get more workload out of like Swift. Like he got more workload coming out of that. We're seeing that shift happen. This is kind of, I would be abandoning ship almost if I can get something good in return. Yeah. Because he still has all the potential in the world, that great athlete and everything. But if you're not getting the carries, so that's someone I would be aiming for if you have that potential in your league. Because I think Edmonds is going to be the guy. And I think by the time Drake gets back, he could have that role locked in. And they're coming off a bye week as well, so you have them going forward.
Yeah.
So
all right. Moving on to the wide receiver stings. We talked about this in the unrecorded episode on Friday that no one got to hear. But we both were expecting Adam Thielen to struggle because of the weather. And what do you know? Adam Thielen finishes with 4.2 points, 3 catches for 27 yards because it was cold, windy, and so they just kept giving the ball to Dalvin Cook. And what do you know? Dalvin Cook goes off.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that did not surprise me whatsoever. I was well below the consensus ranking of both Thielen and Justin Jefferson because of that. I mean, not just the shift in weather, but the matchup as well with Green Bay. Green Bay just shuts down wide receivers. Well, we've seen that consistently throughout the season. So it's something to monitor. They get gashed by the run and get shut down, the receivers. So that's something as a team they should probably work on going forward. But yeah, I will always downgrade that. And then with the weather conditions, having the over 20-mile-an-hour winds, the cold, it just I don't know. I'm not surprised. So
you and I were the only ones that had of the SkullKing rankers that had Adam Thielen below wide receiver 10. You had him at 19. I had him at 15. And then Justin Jefferson, we were the only one. No, you had him at 26. I had him at 22, and Anthony had him at 27. So
okay. Yeah, I had him at 27 before. I think I moved something like someone like got injured and I had to pull him out or something like that happened. So I dropped him down when we first recorded. So
all right. And then Cooper, Amari Cooper, 5 targets, 1 catch, 1 point, 1 catch, 5 yards. I never would have expected Gallup to get that many more targets than Amari Cooper.
I mean, he was getting stared down the whole time. Like DiNucci just literally looked to that side of the field the entire game, and just like that was his first read the whole time. It was either a short dump off to Schultz or literally right side of the field. Let's throw it there every time. I never saw him like look left one time as he was playing. The biggest thing with that, I kind of got caught into the whole, game one when DiNucci came in and he threw literally only to Cooper. So I was a little bit higher than most. So I was trying to like read the tea leaves a little bit. But this is kind of an offense to avoid until Andy Dalton comes back. And even then it might be a way to kind of downgrade as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. So, all right, moving on to the tight end stings. Number 1, Jonnu Smith, 3.7 points, 2 catches for 29 yards. I did not see this coming against a defense that has struggled a little bit against tight ends.
I don't want to talk about this. I'm upset. Everything was there to set up for a great game, and he gets outscored by the backup tight end in this game. Like even combined, they didn't have a great game. And tight ends in general didn't have a great week, unless your name is Travis Kelce. But yeah, this one stings hard.
Yeah, let's see. Jonnu Smith, 2 catches for 29 yards, and Fursker had 2 catches for 36 yards.
Yep.
It's just.
I mean, when you have a game where Corey Davis goes off, A.J. Brown has a great game. I guess it's harder to see that happening, but I did not see him having that little targets in a game. He's been averaging much more than that. Yeah.
And then
sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then the other one is we usually don't involve injuries, which is what Kenny Golladay didn't score any. We didn't have him in the Kings and Stinks section because it's an injury. Because injuries are just plain, you can't predict those. But George Kittle played most of this game and still only came down with 2 catches for 39 yards. I mean, and he went out like end of the third quarter, I think is when it was, or maybe it was even beginning of the fourth quarter. Garoppolo just wasn't hitting him. He just wasn't even. I mean, 4 targets I think is what he finished with in this game.
I mean, I think also it's heavily game planned to stop Kittle. With Debo being out, I mean, it's no excuse. When you're that great of a player, you should have been schemed better or like done more with it. The only way I can consider this one is that like maybe he got hurt early on. He was fighting through it, and he couldn't deal with the press or the way they were playing him. But yeah, it was just like San Francisco did not look good until Mullins got in, and by then that was when Kittle was out as well. So,
and then the other big sting was the one you and I called, which unfortunately no one was able to hear. But Mark Andrews finishing up 3 catches for 32 yards, 4.7 points. Both of us, you and I were the only ones that had him. Let's see,
I moved
the
him
only
up
ones that
last
had him
minute.
below tight end 4. Everyone
Yeah,
else had him 4, 3, or 5, and you and I had him. I had him at 10, and you had him at 14. So
yeah, I even moved him up last minute a little bit higher. I couldn't commit. I got scared, but even then, I still wasn't in on that. He's a disappearing artist.
yep,
And he just makes you believe so much because you want to, because he's so much fun to watch when he's on.
yep.
But he's still matchup dependent a lot of the time, and I love Mark Andrews. I call him Andrews. He's just like one of my favorite players in the tight end position. But bad matchup, and then we've been talking about before. Lamar Jackson has not been a good thrower
Yep.
this year.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's matchup dependent, but I'd say temper expectation compared to last year. And we all expect him to play better this year with no Hayden Hurst, but I think I need to pay attention to more matchups, especially since the offense as a whole has been like Mark Andrews and then some Hollywood Brown, and everyone else is kind of, so they're really targeting on that.
All right. Well, that's it for our Kings and Stings section. What we want to do now is we want to do just a quick little Monday night miracle section here. Try to figure out what is available out there for, of guys that are left to play. Is there anyone that could help you win your league? So, or win your matchup for this week. So, looking at this game, Buccaneers against the Giants. You and I don't have Tom Brady ranked extremely high this week, if I remember right.
Let me double check what I got.
You had him at 8, and I had him at 10.
Yeah, I mean,
so
still the QB1.
Yeah, I mean,
still worried I'm too low.
Low end QB1. I mean, the way I was looking at it, the Giants have been semi decent against quarterbacks. I'm basically giving up about projection to quarterbacks. Really, where they've been struggling a little bit more is in the run game and stopping the run. So, I think that if you've got Rojo, I'm still worried about Leonard Fournette.
Who outsnapped him last game? Yep. Who outsnapped him last game? So
yeah.
I mean, I'm always worried about Rojo just because the way Bruce Arians has always coached him. You make one miss blocking attempt, and you'll pull it for a while. You drop a pass, which we saw. You're sitting on the bench for a while, and that's how I love Rojo having to break off any play. But that's always worried me. I've always had him lower than normal. It kind of bit me a few times, but I could bite me this week. But yeah, it always worries me with that start there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, you and I don't have him the highest of all of us. I've got him at 17.
I think I'm in the 20s.
Yeah, you've got him at 23. So we'll kind of see how that matchup works out. Leonard Fournette, I could still see putting up, again, Leonard Fournette is all going to depend on, does Rojo end up in the doghouse again mid-game?
I mean, also depends how the game script goes.
Yeah.
I don't see it being a script where they're going to need to check down to Leonard Fournette a bunch.
Yeah.
Just because he's been the pass catching back since he's been back pretty much. He's just has better hands than Rojo does. And I don't see this one being one of those barn burning, especially since they have a shorter week and they have the Saints next week. So I think the way I look at it, I think they're going to try to get a lead and then just hold the lead. And that deems more Rojo plays, but you never know who's actually going to get the run.
Yep.
So maybe it's a more 50-50 split.
And then moving to, and really, we're not talking about the Giants because you really shouldn't be starting Daniel Jones unless you're in a 2 QB league, and he should be like a low-end QB2. So I don't trust anyone in the run game for the New York Giants, especially going up against the Buccaneers that are one of the best teams against the run. So that's why we haven't talked about anyone on the Giants yet. Moving on to the wide receivers, I could see Slayton and possibly Shepard. Shepard, had a nice little comeback when he came back. Was it that first week?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Daniel Jones likes throwing to him. It's interesting because both Shepard and Tate are slot receivers. I mean, that's what they've always been. And so I think that Shepard is could be in for an okay game. I mean, I'm not trusting him to do much more than 8-9 points in terms of half-point PPR.
I mean, if you're looking for a Monday Night Miracle, I would look more towards Slayton if he's available. But Shepard is not a bad play because a lot of times Slayton's rostered. He's sitting on someone's bench and they're upset about it, especially the way he's been playing. But Shepard's one of those guys that he plays best out of the slot, but as long as Tate's there, he's not getting the slot snap. So he's still being an outside player currently. So then outside player could break one off or could hit a little slant to the house. I don't think he's a bad play, but I still, like I said, 8 to 10 points is what I'm expecting from him. But if you get 8 to 10 points and add in a touchdown there, that can swing something.
Yeah, and the guy that I'm really looking at to really give you a boost if you need a Monday Night Miracle is Scotty Miller, because he's still only rostered in 10% of Yahoo leagues. But with Chris Godwin still out, missing the next couple games, and you don't have AB coming back until next week, this could be another one of those. If they're putting a whole bunch of extra coverage on Mike Evans, this could be another Scotty Miller week.
Scotty Miller is one of those players that is the Monday Night Miracle guy, because he can go out there and score you 30 points. He can go out there and score you 3 points, and there's no rhyme or reason to how he scores. I'm a stats kind of guy, so I have to look at what trends there are, and Scotty Miller's no trend whatsoever. So he's just one of those Mecole Hardman, these guys you throw in, you're let's hope for the best.
Yep.
But I need the points. So if you're looking for someone out there to just pick up and play, you need that shot in the dark. I think he's not a bad call. I believe I have him as a wide receiver 3, just because the target share is going to be there. But he could, again, he's had the 20-plus point games already, so he's got that in his wheelhouse. Just if it happens.
Yeah, you and I have him about the same spot. You have him at wide receiver 39. I have him at 38.
Okay, so I'm just outside the wide receiver 3 range. Yeah.
So.
Again, that's because he disappears half the time too.
Correct. So, and again, we talked about this. It may be game scripted towards the running backs if they get a big lead. So, and then as far as the tight ends go, I don't trust Evan Ingram at all. I'm starting to trust Rob Gronkowski a little bit more though. But again, we'll see. He's I think he finally got into actual football shape, and has produced pretty well the last couple weeks. I wonder how long it's going to last if his legs start turning to jelly again.
Yeah, but the biggest thing Rob Gronkowski has going for him is the amount of passes that go to the tight end in that offense, whether it be Gronk, Brate, or Hudson. And I only know Hudson's name because I had to like spot start him in a 2 tight end league. But they have like I believe a 30% market share as a collective unit.
Yeah.
There, which is one of the highest. I believe is the 3rd highest, if I'm not mistaken.
Which for Bruce Arians' offense is not normal.
No, not at all. Bruce Arians is known for having his tight ends block.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
There's a quote saying I don't pay tight ends to run routes. I pay them to block or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know the exact quote, but I remember that. I'm like, okay, so OJ Howard's getting dropped in my rankings when they first got there.
Yeah.
But I think this is more of Brady wants that. So I think this kind of a cohesive unit of the two working together is Brady's so used to using that middle area of the field, and Gronk getting linebackers on him that can't, even in his old age, cover his athleticism.
Yep.
Because he's still a presence on that field. So, I'm still not super high on him. I have him at tight end 11. I believe you have him tight end 9. And we both think Ingram is basically dead. I have him at 19. You're 23.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us, CJ. We will definitely have to do this again. We'll see if we can get you on for tomorrow night when we go over our waiver wires.
I'll be here.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen again to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. It looks like we actually got everything recorded, and so we actually have audio. We'll check this.
I hope so.
But again, thank you guys so much for listening. My name is Ryan Skullrood. And this has been the SkullKing SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast. We'll talk to you later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.